Hello and welcome back to the Spruce Grove Public Library's YouTube channel. I'm Sarah, the Children's Librarian here at the Spruce Grove Library, and we are reading Love, Hate and Other Filters by Samira Ahmed, which is one of our global read aloud picks for this year. And it is our teen pick, so we are reading this in conjunction with our teen book club. So if you have not already joined that, then go on Instagram and look us up. We are on SGPL Virtual Reading Club, so come join us and we will have books every month. And we also are doing the Global Read Aloud this month. So we've already read a few chapters, so if you haven't already joined us, then go back and watch the other videos. So we're up to chapter 3. And I also wanted to point out that other books that were picked for the Global Read Aloud this year are now on the New York Times bestsellers list. So if you haven't already picked up Amal Unbound or Refugee, then definitely go for it, because they are absolutely amazing books. So chapter 3. So Violet drops me off at my house. I run to my room to change and frantically reapply my makeup before heading out to the bookstore. I leave a note for my parents, back late studying with Violet after work. We'll grab dinner with her. It's a lie. And it's not my first either. 20 minutes later, I'm parking my mum's conspicuous Mercedes in front of the Idle Hour. For my parents, their matching Benzies signal the success of their practice or having made it in America. For me, the cars simply shout, "Hey, look at me!" I don't want the attention, but I don't have a choice. Not wanting attention is part of why I love working at the bookstore. That and opening up boxes of new books. Their pages crisp, spines unbroken. My parents insist it's unnecessary. They want to actually remind me that they provide me with whatever I want. What they don't say out loud, what they mean, is that time working can be spent doing other activities that they prefer, like homework and learning to cook. I want to make my own money to spend or save as I wish. It's mostly spent though, and honestly mostly spent here. While I get a discount from the couple who owns the place, Richard and Anna, massive chunks of my paycheck still go towards the Idle Hours books on cinematography and the history of old Hollywood and the studio system, and biographies of famous directors and actors. At least the DVDs are free. Granted, nobody wanted them in the first place, but I pleaded with Richard and Anna to spare their celluloid, well, digitized lives. It was how we met. I convinced them to open a DVD library in the corner of the store, like a public service preserving our cinematic history. They not only agreed, they offered me a part-time job. And since then, basically, it's only been a public service to me, because they let me borrow as many movies as I want. The store is nearly empty tonight, so I can browse a bit before sitting at the register. Alone in the stacks, I run my fingers across the gleaming paperbacks and matte hardcovers. I lose myself in the titles. It's meditative, and it clears my mind, although being at the register also allows me to check out a bit and let my imagination wander. Before I know it, I'm in the film section, naturally, and my eyes settle on a book I'd been spotting earlier, Hoop Dreams. I pull it off the shelf and start thumbing through it. Anything interesting? I look up. Phil is heading towards me. He has this walk that is somehow languid and confident at the same time, like a slow-moving river that doesn't need to show its strength because it's a known fact. When he gets closer, I notice the tiniest speck of shaving cream in the little nook where his jaw meets his ear. And then he smiles, and all I can see is dimples again. I'm cotton-mouthed, so I clear my throat. It's a book about two high school athletes, actually. It was a documentary first in the 90s, and then they expanded on it for the book. I gave him a hopeful look, but stare into a blank face. I snap the book shut and point at the title, Hoop Dreams? A basketball movie? It's not just about basketball, it's about family relationships and survival, and the world crushing your dreams. So it's a comedy, Phil says. It's really great, you should watch it sometime, if you can bring yourself to watch a movie about a lesser sport. He shrugs. I actually tried playing basketball in middle school, loved it, still do. Why'd you give it up? I've got no vertical, like literally. The coach told me I'd be warming the bench a lot, but I had a good arm and was kind of fast, so he suggested football. And the rest is Batavia High School history. Phil looks down at his shoes, something like that. Crap, did I say the wrong thing? I reach out to touch Phil's elbow, but a terse voice makes me drop my arm. Hey man, what are you doing here? It's Brian, a football player in my French class. I tense slightly as he comes towards us down the narrow aisle. He's not as tall as Phil, but he's more broad-shouldered. His eyes are sunken and hollow and fixed on Phil as if I'm not there. He sits behind me, but I never really get a good look at him during class. But right now he looks as if he hasn't slept in a week. He clearly hasn't shaved in the last few days either. Hey man, Phil echoes. Maya's helping me with independent study project. Phil and Brian bump forearms. All the athletes do this. It's like they have swine flu and are trying to avoid germs. That's why I'm here too. Brian holds up a book. I'm reading American Sniper. He jerks his head towards me. What's with the help? Phil's face darkens for an instant and he takes a step closer to me. He laughs, sort of awkwardly. A boy who's never awkward, and I sense an attempt to diffuse some sort of sudden moment I have yet to read. She has a name, dude. Her name's Maya, and she goes to our school. She works here, but you know that. Whatever. Brian turns and walks away in the direction of the register. One hand clutches his book into his chest, and the other is clenched in a fist at his side. Say hi to Lisa, he calls. It's a dig at me, and it stings. I ignore it because I'm not eager to talk about the possibility of a still existent girlfriend, whom Phil has most likely recently kissed. But I can't ignore how, despite my standing in front of him, despite us being in class together, Brian totally erased me. Also, he's completely creeps me out. His eyes, his face, the simmering anger in his voice. Sorry about that, Phil says. He's been weird this whole semester. Really since before the season ended. Weird how? Phil stops himself. His unfinished thought lingers in the air for a moment, and then he shakes his head, smiles, and points to the cafe at the front of the store. Shall we? I search for something to say, but I come up blank, and we walk together silently to find a table. Phil probably has a good 10 inches on me, but unlike the other tall kids I know, he isn't gangly or clumsy. He carries himself with a certainty and ease that makes him appear older. He's always had that air about him even before he had his growth spurt, and I envy how comfortable he is with himself. As I settle into my seat, Phil walks to the coffee counter, and a minute later he returns balancing 2 coffees and a piece of chocolate cake. I thought we could share, he says. Thanks, I love cake, and I want to slap the palm of my hand against my forehead. I sound like a sugar-obsessed 3-year-old. I wonder if I'll ever not be bumbling and weird around Phil. Probably best to just concentrate on the reason I agreed to meet him instead of on his twinkling green eyes. Do you have your essay? Cake, then homework, he protests. Unless you're in a rush? Not at all. Dessert definitely takes precedence over homework. I want to high-five myself for managing to sound breezy and casual. And then I realise I'm smiling like an idiot, and my face warms with embarrassment. Phil smiles back. Oh, God. My cheeks all outburn. You blush a lot, he says. It's a weird genetic anomaly. I call it the Maya paradox. I'm a world-class visible blusher despite loads of melanin. I'm pretty much a scientific wonder. I have to eat now. That way words will stop falling out of my mouth. We sit there devouring cake, occasionally locking eyes, until I look down at the disappearing slice between us. Phil and I reach for the last piece at the same time. He battles me for it before cutting it in half and nudging the bigger piece towards me. I finally relax a little. So you picked the namesake? He nods, his dimple vanishing and his brow furrowing. I missed a day of class and so I got stuck with this book and the topic of forging identity. Then you got lucky. This is pretty much the theme of the whole book. What ideas do you have so far? I have 0 ideas. He pauses and meets my gaze. Well, okay, there's this weird thing with Gogol's name. Like, why does he need 2 names? It's actually kind of confusing. It's confusing to him too, plus Gogol is not an Indian name, so he's like a total outsider, even in his own culture. Phil pauses and leans back in his chair, so that's why he introduces himself as Nikhil to the girl in the bar, even though she already knows him as Gogol. I nod. Mushumi, that whole relationship was so sad. Not for her. She cheated on him, Phil responds. True. But they're all searching for belonging. She was too. Not that it's an excuse to have possibly mind-blowing sex with a French dude. My mouth clamps shut. But it's too late. I can feel my face heating up once more, and it started the moment the word sex slips from my lips. Phil chuckles and raises his coffee cup to not having random sex with French dudes. I lean in to touch the tip of my cup against his and then pull it away. I feel like I should keep my options open, I blurt. And Phil laughs, nearly spilling his coffee. His laugh is round and deep and makes his shoulders shake, and the dimple in his cheek is back. I think I was making a joke. I think I wanted this reaction, but part of me isn't sure. It occurs to me that this is the longest time we've ever spent alone together in all the years we've known each other. Yet somehow I've stopped being nervous and started to have fun. I reach for Phil's book to find a quote on identity. Our hands touch briefly, his skin is warm, a heater for my icy fingers. I hold my breath and tug at the book, and Phil teasingly pulls it back. My phone buzzes. Violet! I curse silently, snatching the phone off the table before turning it off and pulling it closer to my chest, expecting a shouty Cap's demand for details. You're right, Senna is amazing, but I'd like your IRL colour commentary. Next weekend? It's not Violet, it's Kareem. I run my thumb over the screen to wipe away an unexpected pang of guilt. I look at Phil and think of his fight with Lisa at the dance. I think of his sudden desire to be a good student, and overwhelmed, I seek refuge in the namesake and turn to a dog-eared page, and a familiar line jumps out at me. You are still young, free. Do yourself a favour. Before it's too late, without thinking about it first, pack a pillow and a blanket and see as much of the world as you can. And that's where we're going to leave off today. So thanks for joining us. If you want to read the rest of this book, we'll be showing it on our YouTube channel. If you can't wait for me to put up new posts, then grab a copy of your own. Come by the library and we can set you up with one. And as I said, I do recommend the other books picked this year for the Global Read Aloud. If you haven't already read A Boy Called Bat, we are also going to be posting videos of that book read aloud. And also there's Refugee and one other one, it's on the tip of my tongue. Amal Unbound, that's the one. We aren't going to be reading those ones aloud because we just don't have time, unfortunately. But we do have copies of them here, and as I said, they are on the New York Times bestsellers list this month. So do check them out. Thanks for stopping by. Bye.